The night before I was supposed to leave for college, I found myself staring at a half-packed suitcase and a growing sense of dread I couldn't quite explain. Maybe it was the way my mom kept glancing at my dad during dinner, or how my dad avoided eye contact altogether, quietly swirling his wine glass like we were in the middle of some corporate negotiation. Something was off, but I had no idea that in less than an hour, the entire trajectory of my life would change. My name's Caleb, and I was 18 at the time, just a week past my birthday, freshly accepted into my dream school, and buzzing with the kind of nervous excitement you only get when life feels like it's finally about to begin. I'd gotten into a great business program with a partial scholarship, and my parents had always told me, "Don't worry, your college fund is ready. All you need to do is focus and make us proud." So I did. I studied like crazy, never partied, never gave them attitude. I followed the playbook to a T. Growing up, I always thought my family was normal enough. My dad worked in finance, my mom ran a local interior design business from home, and we lived in a nice suburban neighborhood in Connecticut. We weren't millionaires, but we were comfortable. Vacations twice a year, decent cars, new iPhones every couple of years. Nothing crazy, but enough that I never felt deprived. And then there was my sister, Alyssa. She's 4 years older than me, and if you ever met her, you'd swear she was cast as the lead in every teen drama stereotype. Blonde, bubbly, obsessed with being different in the most conventional ways possible. You know the type. Yoga 1 week, crystals the next, and then suddenly she's a self-proclaimed real estate expert because she binge-watched HGTV for a weekend. But here's the kicker. My parents adored her. Not just loved, adored. She could crash her car, skip class, lose jobs, and somehow, she'd still end up with a pat on the back and a "you're just finding your path, sweetheart." Meanwhile, I get the 3rd degree for forgetting to empty the dishwasher. Still, I never really resented her. Not deeply. Maybe I just got used to it. The double standards, the different expectations. I learned to keep my head down, to stay out of the way. I figured, hey, maybe if I work hard enough, they'll finally see me the way they see her. Stupid, I know. Back to that night. We'd just finished dinner. Spaghetti and garlic bread. I remember it clear as day, and I was about to head back upstairs to finish packing when my mom said, "Caleb, can you sit down for a second? We want to talk to you." I paused, glanced between them. My dad was still swirling that wine like it was going to give him the answer to life. My stomach did a little flip, but I sat. My mom folded her hands on the table, and for a moment, she looked guilty. I couldn't tell. She started talking slowly, carefully, like she'd rehearsed the whole speech in her head. "Your father and I have been thinking about what's best for the family," she said, voice syrupy soft. "And we made a decision that we believe will help everyone in the long run." My brows furrowed. What kind of decision? My dad finally looked up. "We used your college fund." I laughed, not because I thought it was a joke, but because I hoped it was. "You what?" "We used it to help Alyssa with a down payment on her house," my mom said, as if she were announcing a donation to charity. "She's really been struggling, and we thought she deserved a head start." My jaw actually dropped. "You gave my college money to Alyssa?" "What?" "She's had a tough year," my mom continued. "That breakup with Marcus really affected her, and she's been trying so hard to get back on her feet. She needed stability." I was stunned into silence. "I mean, what? Alyssa had stability issues because she broke up with her boyfriend? And that somehow justified emptying the fund they'd been promising me since I was 12? I leave for college tomorrow," I managed to stammer. "How am I supposed to?" "You still have your scholarship," my dad said. "And we can co-sign some loans if you need help. Besides, you're studying business. You'll make that money back in no time." I stared at them. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to demand they take it back. But all I could do was nod, stand up, and walk upstairs. I didn't pack another thing that night. I just sat on the edge of my bed, numb. The worst part? They never even apologized. Not once did they say, "I'm sorry, Caleb. This wasn't fair." In fact, my mom had the audacity to knock on my door around midnight and say, "Try not to be upset. Your sister really appreciates this. She said she's going to invite you over for dinner once she settles in." As if that was supposed to make everything better. I didn't sleep. I waited until morning, then told them I needed some space before move-in day and left with a duffel bag. I didn't go to campus. I didn't go to a friend's. I just vanished. No angry texts, no grand exit. I disappeared. For the next 2 years, I barely spoke to them. No holidays, No check-ins, no social media updates. Just silence. And in that silence, I started something. Something they never believed in. Something they would soon regret underestimating. But I'll get to that later. I didn't have a master plan when I left that morning. Just adrenaline and betrayal running through my veins like rocket fuel. I hadn't even packed my laptop. Just some clothes, my phone, a half-charged power bank, and the cash I'd stashed from my summer job at the hardware store. I remember the cool morning air hitting my face as I walked down the block, not knowing where I was going. Only that I wasn't going to college. And I wasn't going home. My name might have been on the college roster, but I never stepped foot on campus. Instead, I spent the first few nights sleeping in my car, parked behind a 24-hour gym I still had a membership to. It wasn't glamorous. I lived off protein bars and cheap burritos. I'd shower at odd hours to avoid the staff asking questions. During the day, I drove around town applying for jobs, retail, delivery, warehouse gigs, anything that didn't ask too many questions about school. I told myself it was temporary. I just needed time to think, to regroup, to figure out what had just happened to my life. But it wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal, the feeling of being disposable. Like I was a financial contingency plan, not a son. Like I was only worth what I could produce. And when it came time to choose, they gave it all to Alyssa without blinking. What stung the most was that no one reached out. For the first week, my phone was eerily quiet. Then I got one text from my mom. Please let us know when you're done being dramatic. Alyssa is worried about you. That was it. No, are you okay? No, we miss you. Just another guilt trip wrapped in faux concern. I didn't respond. In the months that followed, I worked 2 part-time jobs. I moved into a tiny, rundown studio apartment with no AC, mold in the bathroom, and the thinnest walls I'd ever heard. I could hear my upstairs neighbor's entire phone conversations word for word. But it was mine. I was free. And broke. But determined. I started teaching myself everything I could about digital marketing. It started small: YouTube tutorials, free webinars, sketchy PDFs from internet forums. I'd always been curious about business, but now I was obsessed. It was like a switch had flipped. Every hour I wasn't working, I was learning. Funnels, email sequences, ad copy, SEO, the whole thing. I even took some sketchy freelance gigs online just to test what I was learning. Somewhere in that grind, something changed in me. I stopped fantasizing about my parents realizing they were wrong. I stopped imagining dramatic reunions or heartfelt apologies. I started thinking about building something that made me completely untouchable. Meanwhile, Alyssa had become the golden child 2.0. I know because I started checking her socials again around the 6-month mark. She was posting home renovation updates like she was on HGTV. New kitchen backsplash. Painted walls. A new golden retriever puppy named Waffles. One caption read, "Home sweet home. Wouldn't be here without my amazing family." Amazing family. Right. Every photo was meticulously curated. Her in yoga pants holding a paintbrush. Our mom helping her pick out curtains. Our dad holding up a power drill like some proud suburban handyman. It was like a middle finger wrapped in a Pinterest board. I kept scrolling. There were holiday pictures. Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. And in every one, there she was, front and center, glowing like a Hallmark card. My absence wasn't even mentioned. It was like I'd been photoshopped out of my own life. And then, nearly a year after I vanished, came the moment that snapped the last frayed thread of any remaining loyalty I had. I was working a late shift managing a local cafe's inventory system when my old friend Kyle texted me a screenshot. No words, just an image. It was Alyssa's latest Instagram post. She was standing in front of her house, holding up a for sale sign with a big smile. The caption? "Moving on to bigger things, grateful for the journey, and for the family who believed in me from the start." Kyle's message followed a second later. "Didn't your parents use your college fund to help her buy that place?" I didn't answer. I just stared at the screen, heart pounding. The comments were full of praise. "So happy for you. You deserve everything good. Your fam is goals." I clicked through to the realtor listing. The asking price was $100,000 more than what they'd bought it for. The photos showed a newly landscaped backyard, stainless steel appliances, even a hot tub. A hot tub. Paid for, I could only assume, with the money that should have bought my textbooks and dorm sheets. And now she was flipping it for profit. That night, I didn't sleep. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling of my crappy apartment while the upstairs neighbor argued with his girlfriend for the third time that week. My mind was racing. I thought about the years of being the easy child, the one who never asked for much, who worked hard quietly, followed the rules, played support while Alyssa got every spotlight. I thought about my mom's voice, telling me to smile and be grateful. I thought about my dad's silence while I was erased. And then, somewhere around 3 a.m., I realized I wasn't mad anymore. I was focused. They wanted to believe I was dramatic? Fine. Let them think I disappeared because I was too sensitive. Let them assume I was living in some dark basement, licking my wounds. Let them brag about how Alyssa turned out so successful with their help. I was going to make something so massive, so undeniable, that they would choke on their assumptions. And I knew exactly how to do it. By now, I'd built a small but steady stream of online income from a few affiliate marketing sites and running paid ads for local businesses. But it wasn't enough. I needed scale. So I doubled down. I launched my own product, a digital course teaching local business owners how to market themselves without an agency. I priced it low, kept it no frills, and sold it directly through cold emails and paid Facebook ads. The first month, 20 sales. The next, 200, then 600. By month 6, I'd made more than I would have with a 4-year degree and a desk job. By the 1-year mark, I'd cleared 6 figures. I didn't post about it, didn't update my LinkedIn, didn't change my number. I let them think I'd vanished. Until the day I got an email from my mom. Subject line, "Can we talk?" I hovered over it for a full minute before opening it. "Hi, Caleb. I know it's been a while. Your sister mentioned she saw your name on some business podcast, and we were surprised, in a good way. We'd love to catch up. Maybe come by for dinner." There was no mention of what happened. No apology. Just a casual invitation, like we hadn't been radio silent for 2 years. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came 3 weeks later, when I found out why she'd really reached out. Kyle sent me another screenshot. This one was from a local Facebook group. Urgent. Does anyone know a good bankruptcy lawyer who handles foreclosure defense? Asking for a family member in trouble. DM me, please. Posted by my mom. Attached was a blurry photo of a foreclosure notice taped to a door. Alyssa's door. The caption underneath simply read, "Unexpected hardships. Any advice welcome." I stared at the screen, and something in me went quiet. Not satisfied. Not smug. Just quiet. Because I knew what came next. And they had no idea what they were walking into. When you disappear, people either forget you or fantasize about who you used to be. My parents, it seemed, chose the second option. The boy they remembered was obedient, quiet, respectful. The one who always said thank you, even when it hurt. They never imagined the version of me that emerged after everything. Not the version who'd been humiliated, left behind, and rebuilt himself from the ground up in silence. I didn't respond to that email from my mom. I didn't respond to the second or third, either, the ones where her tone shifted from polite curiosity to subtle guilt tripping. "Your father and I are just worried. Alyssa's going through a tough time, and it would be nice to have the whole family together again." That line stuck with me. It would be nice. As if I were just some missing photo frame they wanted to set back on the shelf for display. Like my existence only mattered when it fit the aesthetic. The truth was, by that point, I wasn't missing. I was thriving. But to understand how I got there, you need to rewind just a bit. Because my rise wasn't instant. It wasn't glamorous. It was built on frustration, resentment, and long nights staring at code and ad dashboards and bank balances that barely covered rent. After I saw Alyssa flipping the house, the one they bought for her with my future, I hit what I can only describe as a quiet breaking point. Not the kind with screaming or tears. Just stillness. Like everything inside me went cold and focused. I quit my job at the cafe. I picked up a used laptop from a local Facebook seller, paid in cash, half my savings gone in a single transaction. It was scratched, slow, and had a busted shift key, but it worked. Then I locked myself in that tiny apartment and went to war with the internet. Every night, I'd fall asleep with YouTube videos playing about digital products, email marketing, scaling funnels. I studied failed businesses as much as I did successful ones. I reverse-engineered ads from big-name gurus and rewrote their copy from scratch just for practice. I built landing pages, tested headlines, launched courses that nobody bought, got scammed twice by mentorship programs that delivered nothing. And slowly, painfully slowly, I figured it out. The first real win came from a niche I hadn't planned on: wedding planners. A friend of a friend ran a tiny event business and complained about how her website got zero traffic. I offered to fix it for free, optimized her SEO, rebuilt her landing page, and set up a basic Instagram ad campaign targeting newly engaged couples in a 30-mile radius. 2 weeks later, she booked 6 new clients. She paid me $300 as a thank you. Then she referred me to her florist, and her DJ, and her cousin who ran a nail salon. I didn't have a company yet. No LLC, no logo, just a Gmail account, Google Drive, and a desperation to not be forgotten. I called it Black Fox Media. Why? No idea. It sounded sharp, fast, dangerous. I stayed up nights making logos in Canva and mock-up websites using cheap WordPress templates. I'd send cold DMs to small business accounts on Instagram offering to audit their marketing for free. Some ignored me, some blocked me, but a few bit. And when they did, I over-delivered. In 3 months, I went from sleeping in my car to pulling in $3,000 a month. Not much, but enough to breathe. I upgraded apartments. Nothing fancy, still a 1-bedroom, but this time with real lighting and a kitchen that didn't smell like mildew. The first time I saw 4 digits in my bank account without immediately spending them, I remember just sitting in my car and crying. It wasn't joy. It was something closer to release. Because all my life, I'd been told I was too quiet or too passive. Alyssa was the shining light, the talkative one, the ambitious one. I was just background. The kid who did his chores and got good grades. The one who didn't make waves. But this was mine. By the end of year 1, Black Fox Media had grown into something real. I'd outsourced design to a freelancer in the Philippines, hired a copywriter part-time from Upwork, and partnered with a video editor for social media content packages. I started offering marketing bundles to small businesses, ad campaigns, landing page creation, email flows, SEO, all done for you. And people loved it. Because unlike other agencies, I didn't upsell nonsense. I didn't speak in buzzwords. I just delivered results. Tangible, trackable, bank depositing results. My clients weren't Fortune 500s. They were dog groomers, family-owned bakeries, mobile massage therapists. Real people who had been ignored by overpriced agencies for years. In a weird way, helping them felt like helping myself. Like every successful campaign was me pushing back against what my parents believed. Every ad click, every booked consultation, every dollar earned was a rebuttal to the idea that I had to be sacrificed so Alyssa could have a head start. By the start of year 2, I was averaging $20,000 a month in revenue, half profit. And I kept quiet. I didn't show off, didn't post screenshots, didn't call home. It wasn't about revenge anymore. Not really. It was about independence and healing and proving to myself that I was worth something, even if my own family couldn't see it. But you can only hide for so long. One day, while checking my business email, I saw a notification from a podcast producer. He was doing a series on young entrepreneurs and wanted to feature me. Said he heard about me through a client who raved about Black Fox. I hesitated. Going public meant exposure. My name, my story, all of it would be out there. But something inside me said yes. Maybe I was ready to be seen again. The episode dropped 2 weeks later. Nothing flashy. Just me talking about how I'd bootstrapped a business from zero, worked with small-town businesses, and believed in outworking your absence. It went mildly viral. Not YouTube viral, but enough that I got a few thousand new followers on social media. Enough that my mom saw it. That was when the emails started again. We saw your interview. It was impressive. Your dad and I are happy for you. Maybe we could talk soon. But the third one was different. Caleb, we need your help. It's about Alyssa. Turns out, the dream house had become a nightmare. Alyssa had tried to renovate the place beyond what it was worth. Took out a second mortgage. Tried to flip it, but the market tanked. Her fiancé, not Marcus, a new guy, bailed halfway through. Left her with debt, permits she couldn't afford to close, and a half-demolished kitchen. She stopped making payments. The house went into pre-foreclosure. My parents, who had co-signed on the loan, were now at risk of losing their own home because of it. And now, suddenly, I mattered again. They didn't say it outright, but it was there in every word. They thought I could save them. The dramatic son who disappeared. The oversensitive one. The one who, apparently, had turned out more successful than they ever imagined. And now that things were falling apart, they were calling. I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I drove past their house. Not to confront them, just to see it. To see if it still felt like home. It didn't. It looked smaller than I remembered. The porch I used to sit on during summer evenings now looked faded and chipped. The roses my mom used to obsess over were dying. The windows were dark. I sat in my car across the street for nearly an hour, engine off, watching. And that's when the door opened. My dad stepped outside. Older, grayer, slower. He didn't see me, just walked out to get the mail, then stood there staring at the sky like he was waiting for an answer. And for a brief moment, I felt something strange. Not anger, not triumph, something close to pity. But it didn't last long, because I knew, deep down, that this was the same man who looked me in the eye 2 years ago and said, "You'll make that money back in no time." Like my future was expendable, like I didn't matter. So I drove away, and I started planning, because while they were still trying to fix their mess, I had already built an empire, and it was time they saw just how much they underestimated me. I didn't sleep the night I saw my dad outside the house. That image stuck with me. The slumped shoulders, the distant stare, the unspoken weight he carried as he sifted through the mail like he was hoping to find a lifeline. And maybe a few years ago, that would have shaken something loose in me. Maybe it would have made me want to reach out, to fix things, to be the better man. But not this time. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized they hadn't changed. They weren't sorry. They weren't reaching out because they regretted what they'd done. They were reaching out because they needed something. And after years of being the invisible son, the afterthought, the insurance policy they cashed in for a Pinterest dream, I finally had something they needed. Leverage. For the first time in my life, I was the one in control, and I knew exactly what to do with it. At that point, Black Fox Media wasn't just a small business anymore. I had 3 full-time contractors, a growing client base, and a waiting list for consultation packages. We'd just hit our first $1 million in total revenue, and I was expanding into e-learning with a subscription-based community for local business owners. I had freedom. I had reach. But most of all, I had access. Access to networks, to information, to people who were deeply connected in the very space Alyssa thought she could thrive in. See, I'd kept tabs on her quietly, not out of obsession, but out of strategy. I knew she tried launching a small staging business after the house flip failed. She posted about it a few times online. She called herself a property whisperer. She made Canva logos and tried to partner with real estate agents, offering to stage homes for quick sales. It didn't go well. She had no real design credentials, no marketing plan, and no savings left. Just a leased SUV, a puppy, and a growing pile of credit card debt. By the time the foreclosure process started, she was desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. Like reaching out to people I knew. She didn't realize one of my clients, Tanya, a real estate agent I'd been consulting for, had gotten an inquiry from Alyssa's business. A cold email offering discounted staging services in exchange for referrals. Tanya forwarded me the email without even knowing the full backstory. "Hey, didn't you mention your sister tried something like this? Thought it looked familiar, lol." That was when the idea came together. Not out of malice, out of precision. Because this wasn't about hurting Alyssa. It was about reminding everyone what they chose to throw away. I spent the next month quietly preparing. Not with revenge fantasies or dramatic confrontations, but with logistics, paperwork, research. The first step was creating a shell company. I named it Hollow Pine Properties. Clean, professional, untraceable to me. Through Hollow Pine, I started exploring foreclosed properties in the area, quietly bidding on tax-defaulted homes, learning the system, figuring out who the key players were. One of my clients, a financial advisor, introduced me to a foreclosure attorney who specialized in purchasing distressed properties through auction. I didn't even tell him what I was planning, just that I wanted to learn the ropes. And then I made the call that would change everything. I reached out to the bank that held the mortgage for Alyssa's house, not as her brother, but as a private investor, interested in assuming a distressed loan. The rep I spoke to was professional, cautious. "These things take time," she told me. There were procedures, reviews, approvals. But my offer was simple. I wanted to purchase the debt outright before it hit auction. I had the capital. I had the legal counsel. And I had no intention of letting that house go to just anyone. Because I didn't want to buy Alyssa's house. I wanted to own the paper it was printed on. And once I did, the power dynamic would shift forever. While that deal slowly moved through the approval channels, I kept laying the groundwork. I started reconnecting with old classmates and mutual friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Casually. Friendly. No agenda, at least on the surface. Hey man, crazy times. Just wanted to check in. How's life treating you? I reappeared on social media, carefully curated. No bragging, no flexing. Just quiet indicators of success. A new office space. A podcast appearance. A quote in a local business journal. Enough to make people take notice, to ask questions. It wasn't long before word got around. Kyle texted me one night. Yo, your sister messaged me on Facebook. It was random. She asked if I knew what you were up to. I played dumb. You okay? I smiled. The bait was working. And then, almost perfectly timed, I got another email from my mother. Short. One line. Alyssa is moving in with us for now. It's been a very hard few months. I know you probably don't care, but I thought you should know. I almost laughed. The passive aggression was still alive and well. But what she didn't know was that the house Alyssa had just left behind was about to have my name on the deed. The deal closed 2 weeks later. Hollow Pine Properties officially took ownership of the mortgage, and the previous lien was transferred under new terms. All legally airtight. All completely above board. And no one knew it was me. Not yet. The house was in rough shape. Half-finished projects everywhere. Exposed drywall. A leaking sink. The hot tub had been ripped out and left in pieces in the backyard like a broken monument to bad decisions. But I didn't care about the condition. I cared about the symbolism. Because now, for the first time in my life, I held something they couldn't take from me. Control. It wasn't long after that when Alyssa tried to re-enter my life directly. She messaged me on Instagram. Polite. Curious. Hey stranger, smiley face. It's been forever. Saw your podcast thing. Super cool stuff. Would love to catch up. I didn't reply. She tried again a week later. I know we haven't talked in a long time, and I get it. Things were complicated. But I'm hoping maybe we can start fresh. Coffee sometime. Nope. Not yet. Because there was one more piece to set up. One more moment I was waiting for. I had the deed. I had the silence. Now I just needed the audience. I started planning a small business networking event. Nothing huge, just a local meetup of entrepreneurs, realtors, and small business owners. I booked a cozy venue, invited my clients, and partnered with a popular real estate podcast to live stream the whole thing. And on the guest list, Tanya, the real estate agent, her assistant, and a few mutual contacts who had, at one point or another, worked with Alyssa, not as a trap, just as witnesses. Because when the time came to reveal who had saved the house from auction, who now owned the property Alyssa once flaunted like a trophy, I wanted the right people to be watching. I wanted them to see that the quiet kid who got left behind was now the one holding the keys. The event wasn't lavish, I made sure of that. It was intimate, tastefully decorated, and casual enough that no one would suspect the kind of weight it carried for me personally. Just a Thursday evening mixer at a converted warehouse downtown. Edison bulbs, exposed brick, free drinks. I wore a simple blazer over a black tee, nothing flashy. The idea was to keep things quietly impressive. The guest list had been carefully curated. Clients, friends, podcast listeners, small business owners. A handful of agents and local players in the property scene. And near the center of it all, seated at a table near the hors d'oeuvres, was Tanya, the same real estate agent who had unknowingly passed me Alyssa's cold pitch email. She brought her assistant, her mortgage broker, and, as I'd hoped, a friend of a friend who used to go to spin class with my sister. Halfway through the event, while people networked and passed around business cards, I stepped up to the small stage we'd set up. The podcast host, an energetic guy named Rich, gave me a warm intro. You guys are in for a treat. Our next speaker built a 7-figure agency from the ground up, right here in town. Let's give it up for Caleb Reeves, founder of Black Fox Media. The applause was polite, but genuine. I smiled, adjusted the mic, and began. I spoke about small beginnings, about how being underestimated is often the greatest gift. I talked about local business growth, about resilience, about the long road to independence. People nodded along, clapped at the right moments. And then, I pivoted. A lot of you know me as the guy who helps mom-and-pop shops compete with the big dogs. But what you don't know is that 2 years ago, I lost everything I thought I had. The college fund I'd been promised since I was 12, gone. Given away, without warning, to someone else. Family, no less. The room went still. You could hear ice clinking in glasses. I was told, with a straight face, that I'd be fine, that I'd figure it out, that I should be grateful. And instead of fighting back, I disappeared. Quietly. I didn't scream, didn't post a rant, didn't ask for pity. I just worked. I glanced across the room. Tanya was locked in. Her assistant had stopped mid-bite. The spin class friend? Her eyes were wide. I continued. And over the last 2 years, I built something. Not just a business, but a life on my terms. I didn't do it out of rage. I did it out of necessity. And tonight, I want to show you one of the first properties we acquired under our newest investment firm, Hollow Pine Properties. I hit the clicker, and the screen behind me lit up with a photo. A house. One that most of the locals in that room had seen before. Alyssa's. Or rather, my house now. Gasps. Whispers. Tanya straightened in her chair. Her assistant turned to her and said something under her breath. I let the image linger, then smiled. This property had been foreclosed on. Gutted mid-renovation. Poor investment strategy, poor debt management. But we saw potential. Not just in the property, but in what it represented. I didn't need to name names. Everyone in that room who needed to understand, understood. I wrapped the talk with a simple line. Never underestimate the quiet ones. We tend to be building while you're busy talking. Polite applause erupted, but not from everyone. Because standing at the back of the room, just inside the door, was Alyssa and my mother. I don't know how they got in. Probably one of their friends forwarded the event invite. Maybe Tanya, maybe the spin class friend. Didn't matter. What mattered was the look on their faces. My mother's jaw was tight, her lips thin and pressed into a line, like she was holding in 1,000 unspoken words. Alyssa looked frozen, not shocked, exposed, like someone who had just realized her backstage secrets had been broadcast to the entire audience. I stepped down from the stage and walked toward the bar, pretending not to see them. Alyssa caught up with me first. Caleb, she said. What the hell was that? I turned slowly, calm, measured, like a man who held the deed, because I did. That, I said, was the truth. You bought my house. Her voice cracked on my. No, I replied. I bought the house. The one you defaulted on. The one you gutted and abandoned after burning through my future. Don't get it twisted. It was never yours. You didn't have to humiliate me in front of everyone. I sipped my drink. Funny. That's what I thought when I found out you'd been handed my college fund like it was a birthday gift. She blinked. It wasn't my idea. Mom and Dad. I cut her off. Don't. You smiled. You posed in front of it. You captioned it with things like, I deserve this. You never once asked how I was doing. Never offered to pay it back. You just moved on. So did I. She looked like she wanted to argue. To cry. To scream. But she didn't. She just turned away, muttering, You're cruel. And maybe I was. Or maybe, for the first time in my life, I wasn't. My mother approached a few minutes later, after most people had cleared out. I can't believe you do this, she said. No hello. No hug. Just venom. I met her gaze. Calm. Steady. I didn't do anything. I just refused to stay the victim. You made a spectacle of us. No, I said. You did that when you decided one child deserved a future and the other didn't. You just didn't think I'd ever get a microphone. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I didn't wait for a response. I won't take your house, I said. You can relax. I'm not like you, but I will renovate it. And I'll sell it. Properly. The right way. And I'll use every cent to fund scholarships for kids who were told their dreams didn't matter. My mother looked stricken. You don't have to do this, she whispered. But I get to, I said. And that's the difference. She left without another word. The fallout was quiet, but thorough. Within a week, the real estate circle knew exactly who now owned the infamous Yogurino house. Tanya referred 2 new clients to me just days after the event. My social media following doubled. Black Fox Media got featured in an online journal for creative redemption stories. Alyssa moved into a studio apartment. She tried relaunching her staging business, but her reputation never fully recovered. Word gets around fast when you leave a trail of unpaid invoices and burned bridges. As for my parents, they stopped reaching out altogether, and I was fine with that, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing their approval. I had my own legacy. I still drive past that house sometimes, not out of bitterness, out of gratitude, because that broken place, gutted and abandoned, was where I lost everything and then found myself again. Success wasn't the revenge. Indifference was. And that's how I won.